Welcome, Army fans. This is Joe Iacono with another one of our bi-week episodes with a very special guest tonight. First-time guest on the GBK podcast, special teams coordinator Sean Saturnio. Sean, we'll start you off with an easy one. How was practice today? How's the energy going into Rice Week?
Oh, it was fantastic today. The guys are chomping at the bit. You always are a little concerned when you got bye weeks, but the guys, there's a spirit about this year's team that is special. And the leadership is wonderful. And everybody came back locked and loaded. And we went out, had a good from our opening warm up throughout our special teams periods until we finished up. We had 15 periods today. It was great. The guys are locked in and focused, which you like.
Yeah, so you just mentioned, Coach Saturnio, something about the leadership and the energy with the 2024 team. And, I've talked to a number of the fans, a number of the subscribers at GBK, as well as some of the players' parents. I mean, and it's almost tangible. Like you can
Mm-hmm.
feel it. I don't want to get ahead of myself, and certainly, I know you guys do a great job keeping the players level-headed and in check, but talk a little bit about the leadership and kind of what you've seen that makes this team a little special because I think we can all feel it.
Yeah. Well, you look at guys with varied experiences. So you look like a Cody Winokur who had what an amazing journey, one to West Point, out of West Point, back to West Point.
Yeah.
And with a guy like anybody that, you get that type of life experiences, that carries a lot of weight over there. So that's one. And, the guys, I think, of our leaders not being afraid to be vocal, and that's been huge. You know, we got a special teams leadership group that we have. And as we did our leadership work throughout the summer, they were talking about that the feel about this group was different. Like it's crazy, when you coach, each team are like your children, and you raise your children the same, but they
Yeah.
get different personalities. And it just so happens that this bunch has, and they've shared just the mutual affection that they have for each other, the willingness to work hard. And you see that kind of stuff, and it manifests itself, during practice. But then you also see it, I know we've only had 2 games of the season, but I think anybody who's watched this team has seen that, there's just a great level of investment in each other, and that belief that, they're going to do whatever they possibly can do for each other.
So talk a little bit about that special teams leadership group, who's on it, who makes it up, and kind of a Reader's Digest version, because there's a lot of first-time specialists specifically this year that the fan base hasn't really seen prior to 2024. So if you just give everyone a little bit of a Reader's Digest version about the leadership group as well as maybe some of the specialists.
Okay, so we call it the Sauce Team Hui. Hui in Hawaiian is a collective of people with just unbelievable investment in each other. So started it back in 2020 over there, and it's made up of guys that have played special teams. From younger kids. There's always a couple sophomores, and then all the way up to seniors, and try to break it up on both sides of the ball. So you get a really diverse group of kids there that have that foundation of just wanting to do great things in the kicking game. So, young guys like, well, back when he was a sophomore, Max DiDomenico was one of the guys, and he's now obviously a senior and now a
Yeah.
captain over there. You got guys like Brett Jarena and Adam Cash and Tommy Zatello, Noah Short and Jabril. They made it on after
Oh
their
yeah.
freshman year. And then you got younger guys like Elo Madozi, who played a bunch last year on special teams, and Toby Olawale, and just a bunch of them in between. We always have a snapper, a punter, and kicker as part of that group as well. And it's been something that's been really beneficial for us because it's like its own little subset of leaders that has been nurtured and developed. And they're the ones that during the summer with the player-led practices, we go over what they got to do, but they run the whole deal by themselves. So it's the level of investment that they have is really a blessing to be part of as a coach over there.
Very cool. And so, Coach Saturnio, let's talk about a play that happened a couple weeks ago now against Florida Atlantic, the fake field goal that Matthew Rhodes ran in for the touchdown. Kind of first question around that. Is that something you guys called from the sideline as a staff, or is that a look that Trey or Matthew or somebody else on the team can see and then call an audible at the line?
Yeah, well, that's something that will be called in before, and it was just something that we planned. The play itself, there's a lot of different things we always try to work on, and just the having the benefit of a lot of banked reps. You never know when, if at all, some of those things will ever present themselves, and it just so happens, things aligned up just kind of like how you wanted to, and then the kids went out, and that, all the credit goes to those guys because they just day in day out just working on their craft, and just so many different things went on that you know you see the touchdown in the end, which was amazing because those things obviously are extremely rare, having one of the
Yeah.
specialists score, especially from that far out.
Right.
But you look at just like the little things, just the read that had to be made, just little things like Trey Granati staying in pitch relationship that helped stretch
Yep.
the edge out. Hayden Reed getting a
Yeah.
fantastic block over there, and then Owen Walter, who are our long snapper, coming from the backside and getting that last block that allowed
Mhm.
Matt to cut back inside. And one of the things I was extremely proud of that nobody probably paid attention to was him covering the ball with two hands as he crossed the goal
Oh
line, because that's
yeah.
one thing that every position group in this program is taught to do that. And just seeing him revert to just what he's been practicing since he's been here as a freshman, that's those are the things that you look back as a coach and you're just so proud of these guys.
Yeah, there's probably not too many holders across the country who are practicing two hands on the ball as they run across the goal line for a touchdown. So that was pretty cool to see. Absolutely. So in two games so far, Coach, Army has successfully executed a fake field goal and a fake punt. And special teams total, if my numbers are right, I think have accounted for 18 points, including the PATs. Talk about the importance. You're obviously an awesome special teams coordinator, and you guys have picked up the pace since you've been running special teams. But talk about the importance that Coach Monken places on the kicking game that we've heard a lot about, as the head coach. And why your special teams unit, you can go back to Army Navy games, a number of other games, why your guys always seem to come up big in big moments.
Well, I think going back to the first part, having a head coach that is so invested in special teams, he was a special teams coordinator at one point in time. And anytime I think you have the leader of your program or any organization that shows extreme interest and makes something in your organization extremely important, there's a trickle down effect just because of that in and of itself over there. And coaches, it's great working with him because we're always spinning ideas off of each other, and the ability for us to have as much time in practice as we do really helps. Like we talk about just getting a ton of banked reps over and over, and the same things as we harp on offense and defense about being fanatical with the fundamentals. Coach Monken's just huge on that, and those kind of things. It builds that foundation on which you can build success out of. And I think when it comes by, when somebody's number gets called in a big game, it's just them reverting back to what they've been trained to do. It's just, it's so the connections with what they'll have to do after they graduate in whatever it is they choose to do in the Army, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
They fall back to what they've been trained to do, and they do it at an extremely high level. I think the fact that they all see, like we talk about having the get to mentality, not like, some places you have to play special teams.
Hmm.
Over here, we talk about you get to play special teams. And when you have that level of investment by each kid, when it becomes important for them, then I think it's just when a matter of when the opportunity presents itself and they're just ready to go. And there's never going to be a moment that's too big because they're prepared for whatever moment shows up. And that's, again, it's such an amazing thing to be part of as a coach when you have that type of culture that the kids believe in. And, when you get the older guys talking about, can you talk to so and so that I can get on another that you don't
That's
find
it's
that too
funny. I
often.
talked to Noah Short a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, "Hey, any chance we'll see you back on special teams?" And he's like, "Man, I miss it. I really love being able to, do some things there." And so that was kind of cool.
Yeah, and it's neat to see, and that's just speaks to the kids and just how important it is to them,
Good
and
stuff.
and yeah, and like usual too, like you get all these younger guys that's just college football everywhere. That's predominantly their first real extended taste of playing is going to be in the kicking game in some way, shape, or form. So being able to see kids, first touch the field in the kicking game, and then you see them start just blossoming in, offense and defensive stuff has just been awesome to see.
Speaking to that specifically about young players starting, to get their first really live taste of college football action on special teams. How many plebes do you guys have on special teams this year so far?
We
Rough
got
number.
a rough number. There's a handful. It's usually the case too that they're in the depth right now. We don't have anyone right now starting, on the kicking, but we got a couple kids that, are making the travel squad. And, that's always, great to be able to
Yeah.
see over there. And then just can't say enough too about just the leadership in the union themselves, our group of specialists over there, because coming into the season, there's a lot of question marks. We always talk about, let's take the question marks and turn them into exclamation marks over there. And it was great to just see how much time that they've put in. And a lot of people, we've had some really good specialists over the last few years here. What most people don't realize is that these guys who are brand new starters this year, they weren't way behind the other guys. It just they weren't at a point where they were going to take their job, but they were competing their tails off, and it just became the time that now it was their time to shine. And the amount of time they spent into the mental, just being mentally prepared and just having a pre-snap routine that is just exclusively their own, because that's what in what they have to do is so radically different than what other positions have to do. And for them to be able to go and be very, change the mindset from being outcome based to more process based, and you can weather a lot of the ups and downs that way a lot better than you can the other way.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was I was one of the folks in the media yeah, as well as, the fan base, I think felt the same way that, maybe just because we're not at practice every day, so we don't see what goes on. And one of the first things I said about this season and the 2024 team was, it's going to be really hard to replace Quinn Moretzky and Cole Talley, and Anderson Britton and Trey Granati have stepped up big time so far. So
Yeah. And it's, we talk about all the time about how it's, far better to be the best version of you than a counterfeit version of somebody else. And that's all they had to be. Just be the best they can be going out there. And, talked about going into the spring. They said, because they know they hear the buzzing and stuff like that. I said,
yeah,
it's not about proving people wrong. Just prove us right that
yeah.
you guys were the guys, and now it's just your time. Now it's your time. So
Yeah, no,
been
that's
really
pretty awesome.
pleased.
Yeah, so in addition to the fakes and Trey's field goal, Army over the years under your coordination has become very adept at blocking kicks, specifically punts. Haven't seen any yet this year. Part of that may just be situation. I noticed against FAU and Lehigh, you guys were in more of like a punt safe a lot of times because they were in short yardage or close to the middle of the field or whatever. But what makes your special teams so good at blocking kicks? I mean, you guys have consistently been kind of in the top 10 in the country the last couple of years, I think.
I think it's just we spend a lot. It goes back to just the foundation of fundamentals. It's just we practice the most minute details of how your stance and start needs to be, how your shoulders have to be tilted when we're bursting off the line, how you're keying the football, how you finish and destroy a punt. So it's things that we work on every week. We really don't do a lot of scheme stuff until like Wednesday. On
Mm.
Sunday and Tuesday when we practice, it's all fundamental based, and then we build in the scheme. But the scheme is always built off their fundamentals that they have, and then it's just a matter of trying to get something where we can free some guys up, and then it's just a matter of turning the guys loose, and they just execute a fundamental. Like, it's how you get them at certain places or lined up. That's what our job is, try to figure that out. Theirs is just execute it when it comes, and it just always goes back. I sound like a broken record, but it's just being extremely
Yeah.
fundamentally sound. And that's the thing. I think so much now, everything is so much flash over substance, and it's just,
Yeah.
if you don't have substance, you're not going to have the flash either. So we like, it's neat to see that when the kids are successful in that, it's just a matter of, because they've done it time and time and time again. And it's just, I love that they're disappointed when they don't get to block a punt. We joke
Right.
around that. Like, we haven't called ourselves a punt return unit for years. We're a punt block unit. We'll return the
Yep.
ball if we don't block it. That's our philosophy.
Yep. I love it. I love it. Kind of along the same lines, but switching gears a little bit. There's a stat that Army hasn't returned a kickoff for a touchdown forever, and I know with the fair catch rule now, honestly, and I'm for one, I am glad you guys fair catch as much as you do. It cracks me up when I see all these teams try to return kicks from the 1 yard line, and they all get tackled on like the 17 or 18. Like,
Yeah.
have you guys not seen the analytics on this at all,
Yeah.
or like, why are you doing this? So with that being said, does your kick return unit have it as a goal to bring one back for a touchdown? Is that kind of something that's talked about at all, or?
We always talk about going out, and if everybody does their job, if there's it's a ball that we can return, and schematically we feel good on what we're doing, that it should, if it's not a house call, we should get a great return over there. But you're right, Joe. It's, you got to play field position. It's like, why
Yeah.
set your offense? As statistics show, just like from balls that go from the 25 yards line out, the opportunities to score are so much better than if even from the 24-yard line it changes. So, giving the offense the best chance to go out and to go do what they do is, what we got. And it is, I know it's funny because it's always that fine line about, hey, do you try to return it, or you just, do you play the field position battle? But I think it always comes down to what, in the end, it's always going to be what's the best for the team.
Yep, absolutely. And last question. Well, can you hear me, Sean? Looks like
Yeah,
my
I
video
can.
froze a
There
little.
you go.
Okay, my camera's struggling again. I got to get that thing looked at. I had problems with Matt the other night with it too. So kind of switching gears a little bit. Stuff's made its way around social media, and as well as some of the highlights and everything else. You're kind of like the spiritual leader of the team, if I could call you that, or kind of the motivational guy. You're an extremely spiritual guy. I follow you on social media, which is super cool. A lot of that, maybe your Hawaiian background and culture. Talk a little bit to that, and kind of what you're always doing with the team to get the kids pumped up. And not that they need to be pumped up necessarily, but kind of how did that come about for you? You've been with Coach Monken here at Army pretty much, I think, his entire tenure. So talk a little bit about that kind of unofficial role that you have, kind of where you seem to do that.
It's just something I'm blessed that I get to do. It's just, culturally, what we do before, that's obviously, it speaks to the Pacific culture, which I'm extremely proud to be a part of. And the kids love being part of that too. As far as, it's crazy. I usually don't know what I'm going to tell them until like just before I go out over there. But, just being able to pour into their lives. It's just, as you travel down life's road, you start separating the wheat from the chaff on the stuff that's really important in life, and which, some stuff just might be fluff. And to just go out and just the power of just belief, the power of, the connectiveness. We talk about that, it's hard to be a committed team unless you're a connected team. And to just be able to build and pour into their lives. Because in the end, I love that what we get to do every Saturday, and well, on sometimes Fridays, and shooting a couple weeks on a Thursday. But being able to just pour into their lives and help them kind of navigate and find their purpose in life. That's the thing that gets me going. I'm extremely blessed that I get to do that. And, it's just, it's also neat that, you can live out your own personal purpose while helping them find theirs, and, be a small part in them achieving success on the field too. Cause, in the end, my greatest goal as a coach, and it's always been that way, even when I was a high school guy, was, can we turn out the best husbands and fathers and, leaders
Yeah.
now, especially in their unique path that they've chosen, ones that the country will entrust their sons and daughters to, that, and I think that's such a huge responsibility for everybody who touches this program and has a, sphere of influence on these kids. And to be able, to do my small part of that, to help them going, if it gets them excited and just before the game, so be it. But it's more so just on being able to help them become the best versions of them.
Very cool. That's awesome. I think the subscriber base here at GBK will love to hear about that. You mentioned something about a committed team is a connected team and how important connections are and being connected. And I kind of got into talking about this a lot with Coach Drinkle the other night, and he was great talking about it. It's funny, so much is made in the 2024 college football world of transfer portal and NIL and who's going to get the flashiest new toy, wide receiver or quarterback or whatever, and, who's coming in. And do you think maybe that being at a place like Army where we can't really get transfers in, I mean, it happens, but it's happened maybe once or twice in the last 20 years. And, obviously we don't do NIL at Army, although every player does get a salary as a member of the United States Army, and that's pretty cool in and of itself. But whereas everybody thought this was going to be a huge disadvantage for the academies, do you think maybe there's a little bit of an advantage to not having to deal with new transfers coming in every year? And you've had guys like the seniors this year who've been together for 5 years, some of them, if you count the prep school.
Yeah, absolutely. When you get, it's like these guys here, because they're with each other from the time that they get in, to the time that they'll graduate. The investments and the daily deposits they do in their, if you want to call it a relationship bank account, man, you don't get that anyplace else. It's not about me over here. It's always going to be
Yeah.
about we. It always will be about we. That's what the United States Army is about. And
Yeah.
having these guys constantly, there's something to be said about the level of investment that you'll pour into each other, because you're going through an experience so unique that their peers across the country will never be able to wrap their heads around. And you add that with the unique challenges that they go through, it can't help but galvanize you. And the more it's anybody who's been, through anything with a group of people that challenge them and they got through it together, that forges bonds that you can't break, and that definitely for us is a huge advantage. And the more you get these guys, to see that why, that is the X factor that we get to carry all the time, because these guys, they truly love each other. That word gets tossed around a bunch, but when you
Right.
think about it, just being passionate about what you do, passionate about each other, because, passion, the origin of the word itself was about suffering and enduring. And that's, anybody who's had that West Point experience knows that there's going to be some struggle you got to go through. But when you get
Oh
to
yeah.
go through it with people that you love, I tell you what, that allows you talk about being a force multiplier. That's it.
That is awesome. Coach Saturnio, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it. This has definitely been one of my favorite interviews that I've done. I've had a really good week with the Army staff this week. So really, really enjoyed it. You, sir, are a definite blessing to the Academy and the Army football team. And hope they're happy to have you and excited to have you there. And best of success against Rice this coming week. Army fans, once again, this has been Joe Iacono with GoBlackKnights.com, along with Special Teams Coordinator Sean Saturnio. Go Army!